All right. Well, we are going to get started now. There may be a few more people joining us shortly, but my name is Robert Seid. I'm with Blue Summit Wealth Management, and I will be the administrator of this webinar. So just wanted to go over a few of the house rules and how this works for the attendees. So at the bottom of your screen or smartphone, you should see an option to do Q&A, so you can submit questions throughout the whole webinar and we'll address those at the end. You can also raise your hand and we can chat with you privately if you have multiple questions. So those are the ways that you can interact with us. So the schedule for this evening is we have 45 minutes and there will be about 35 to 40 minutes of presentation from Judith and Mandie, and we'll save 5 to 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. And if there's any questions that we can't get to, we will address those with you offline. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters. Mandie Bullock has been an attorney for 12 years, and her focus is estate planning and kids protection planning. She is passionate about helping families create happy and secure futures. In her spare time, she enjoys yoga, mountain biking, and exploring the outdoors with her family. Our other presenter, Judith Seid, is the founder and partner at Blue Summit Wealth Management and is a licensed certified financial planner. She has been helping people make smart decisions with their money for 28 years and has specialized in sustainable and responsible investment portfolios for that entire time. Judy has served on the board of the San Diego Financial Planning Association and is a well-known speaker on topics such as retirement planning, financial literacy, and long-term care insurance. In her spare time, Judy is a cyclist, just like Mandie, and enjoys backpacking in the Sierras. So without further ado, let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. I am going to share my screen now. 1 second. All right, I think that looks good. All right, yeah, thank you, Robert. Thank you all for coming. This is me and my family here. So yeah, I'm gonna talk to you today about the 5 most loving things you can do for your loved ones in the new year. So Judy and I are gonna go back and forth. I'm gonna do a topic and then she's gonna do a topic. So you get to see us not just one and then the other. So we'll switch it up here. So first, and I'm going to spend most of my time on this one, number 1 is make a plan. So, all right, so a plan. So that includes a will or a trust, a power of attorney, a healthcare directive, and if you have minor children, a kids protection plan. So these documents will prevent your family from having to deal with an expensive court proceeding overseen by a judge who doesn't know or really doesn't care about you or your family. All right, so I want to tell you a quick story that really reinforced for me why estate planning is so important. My mom passed away 8 years ago with no estate planning in place, no will, no trust. She knew she needed to do it, but just never got around to it. And when she became sick, it was too hard to do. You know, she didn't want to think about that. She wanted to think about living. So my brother and I had to deal with probate, which is the court process, and I'll talk more about that. So we got to see that firsthand. So this was a long process. It was over 2 years. It was expensive. We had to post a bond every year. And this was New Jersey, which is supposed to be probate friendly, meaning it's supposed to be quicker and cheaper. But the worst part of it was the emotional toll it took on my brother and I. So we made him executor because he was there physically in New Jersey and I was in California with a new baby. So he wasn't handling her death well, and he so it became a nightmare. My mom and dad were divorced, but they still owned a house together. And that was a really hard piece for my brother to deal with. If my mom had known the toll this was taking on he and I, she would have been heartbroken. And looking back, she could have avoided so much of this with a trust. So she could have put her share of the house in the trust along with her other assets. She could have named a trustee who was maybe a little removed, maybe a sibling, a good friend, a professional who would have seamlessly distributed the assets outside of court quickly without my brother and I having to deal with that. And we could have concentrated on grieving. So yeah, that's my story with probate. So let's just quickly review. So this is the state's plan for you. If you have no estate plan and you become incapacitated or die, the state has an estate plan for you, and it involves going to court. So a judge can appoint someone to make decisions for you and give your family access to your assets or direct where your assets should go. So this is called conservatorship if you're incapacitated, or probate if you die. So the court decides where your money goes, and it may not be to who you would choose or in the amounts that you would choose. And it's super costly. So there's attorney's fees, executor fees, appraiser fees, court filing fees, bond premiums, creditor claims. So for example, in California, so it's roughly 5% of the gross value of your estate. So as an example, if say your only asset is your house and it's worth $800,000, probate just on the house would be about $40,000, regardless of the equity value of the house. And then in California right now, probates take a minimum of 12 to 16 months. So in that time, your loved ones probably don't have access to those assets that are going through probate. Okay. So the court process is also totally public. So anyone can go down to the courthouse, pull your court records, see what you own and who is getting it. So here's the will of Jackie Kennedy Onassis. So you could also look up the will of John Lennon, JFK Jr., Babe Ruth, Jerry Garcia. So they all went through the court process and are public. So my point is that a will is public and it doesn't avoid probate. So when a will enters probate, it puts all the creditors out there on notice that your loved ones will be receiving money. So really the only plan that is private, avoids probate, and ensures that your children receive assets when you want and how you want is with a properly funded trust. But we will talk more about that later and also in next month's workshop. Okay, so with just a will or with nothing in place, your children are entitled to all of your assets outright with no restriction at age 18. So if you have minor children at home and want to make sure they don't receive everything you're leaving behind at age 18, then you probably want a trust. And if you don't, say you might not have a trusted family member or friend to act as trustee, there's always professionals who can handle that job. And one last piece, if you want to ensure that your kids receive their inheritance protected from lawsuits against them, future creditors, or even divorce, a trust can do that. So yeah, I'll just give you a quick example. So when my friend's dad died, he left her an inheritance, And at the time she was married, so the inheritance came to her outright. And she didn't know how to keep it separate, as most people don't. So when she got divorced, her husband got half of its value in the divorce. So if her dad had left her that money in a protected trust, she could have used it to invest in her business or real estate and kept all of it when she got divorced. So yeah, a trust can ensure that your kid's inheritance is protected from lawsuits, creditors, or a future divorce, no matter how old they are. Okay, so before we move on from talking about kids, if you do have minor kids at home, I just wanted to tell you 2 quick stories that illustrate how your kids could be at risk, even if you have already named guardians in your will. So if you haven't named guardians, as 69% of parents haven't, and something happens to you, the choice about who raises your kids will be left to a judge to decide. Actually, I might skip this first story and I'll talk about it in our next workshop. But that's the main point of the story. It'd be a judge deciding who would be guardian of your kids. And then, so my other story is one of the first times I left my kids home alone with a babysitter. My husband and I were out to dinner, and I just thought, what if we didn't make it home? What would actually happen to the kids? So, you know, the police would come to the house and talk to the teenage babysitter and say, you know, do you have legal authority to be with these kids? And no, she doesn't. Maybe they found the will that lists the guardians. The guardians are on the East Coast. What's going to happen to the kids in the interim? So they could easily have to go to protective custody in that situation. So I really wanted to make sure that would never happen. So that's why I do a whole kids protection plan that fills in all of those gaps. And I can tell you more about that as well next time. Okay. So the only way to keep your family out of court, either in the event of your death or incapacity, is to have a fully funded living trust. So this means that you have a trust prepared that is properly custom drafted for your family to say exactly what you would want to happen to your assets in the event of your incapacity or death, and that all of your assets are owned in the name of your trust. And then even if you have a trust, chances are it hasn't been updated, and it's likely very out of date because your life has changed, your assets have changed, and the laws have changed. It's also very likely that your assets aren't owned by the trust, and your beneficiary designations might not be correct. Okay, so we have talked a bit about what would happen to your kids and to your assets if you became incapacitated. But what about what happens to you if you become incapacitated? So this is Terry Schiavo. Some of you probably remember this story. So she had been kept alive by feeding tube after she collapsed from full cardiac arrest that deprived her brain of oxygen. So multiple doctors diagnosed her as being in a persistent vegetative state. So her husband argued that she would have never wanted to live like this, and he attempted to have the feeding tube removed. Her parents disagreed and fought to keep her alive, and this resulted in court battles for over 15 years, and her feeding tube was removed, then reinserted, and finally removed. And her ultimate fate ended up in the hands of feuding family members, judges, and legislators. So these terrible events could have been avoided if Terry had just properly executed, a simple document to make sure her wishes were honored. And many of you might have done so, but you know, it's possible that, you know, it's out of date and it won't work when you need it to. So it's probably not comprehensive enough to provide, you know, detailed guidance on how you want to be cared for in the event that you become incapacitated. Okay, so I will stop there, and then we'll let Judy go, and then I'll come back in a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Mandie. That was just fantastic and great information. And those of you who work with us, and I see many of our clients on the call today, on the webinar today, and thank you for joining us. We hope to continue to do these educational presentations for you and your friends if they want to join as well. And those of you who work with us know that we do encourage, or should I say nag, our clients to get their trusts completed and in place and give us a copy of them so that everything can be in order. So I am now going to turn the screen over to my first slide, and hopefully for some reason, I'm not sure. All right, here we go. Financial resolutions for 2021. So as Mandie said, her first resolution is to do some planning. And so I put a little quote up here at the top: a failure to plan is a plan to fail. That's a famous quote by Benjamin Franklin. And that's obviously a lot of what we do. We're called financial planners. So we help you with your planning. And part of that obviously is your estate plan. Some of the things that we help you take care of in the rest of the financial plan, I'm going to talk about today. And my 5 most important things that you can do to take control of your money are going to be: number 1, know what you spend. So we're going to talk about that first. Number 2, boost your retirement contributions. Number 3, optimize your portfolio. Number 4, identify your financial life goals. And number 5, assemble your financial team. At the very end, I'm going to give you a few other bonus financial tips, because we always try to make financial planning fun. We don't want it to be boring. Some people think financial planners are boring, and we just don't want to get stuck in that rut. So know what you spend is one of the most important things. When we first start working with families and we do their financial plan, which oftentimes we'll do, if it's necessary, if it's going to be helpful for them, and we will map out their whole financial projections throughout their lifetime with, you know, inflation, with mortgages paying off, with jobs changing, with retirement, with pensions, Social Security, hypothetical investment returns, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the most important aspects in that financial plan is that we get all that data correct. And one of the biggest determinants in that lifetime projection is going to be, what does somebody spend? So we have to ask our clients to gather that together and do a spending plan. And we think that this is helpful for everybody, whether or not you're doing a financial plan with a financial advisor or not. So I've done a lot of financial literacy courses, and this is just a paramount thing to get under control. I'd love to say how many people that are on the webinar today know what they spend every month, but I'm not sure I'm going to get answers. But you can just think about that. And the ways that we suggest you take control of what you're spending is track your spending for a month or 2. You can use a printout, you can go on a computer, there's online programs that can do that. I started doing this when I was young, when I was in college, and I had a very limited budget, like nothing. Like I wasn't making any money. I had a little savings. I started going to college full time. And I kept a little log by my bed where I could every night track everything that I spent. and you really get to understand what you're spending that way. A lot of our clients use their credit card summary. You can take the end of the year summary and you can look that over. You can cross-check with, what you've outlined your expenses are. Another very helpful thing is determine what of those expenditures are needs versus wants. So, in hard times, how much can you really cut back? In your spending, you should always pay yourself first. Now, what does that mean? Pay yourself first. That doesn't mean go out and buy a new car. That means pay yourself into your retirement account, pay yourself into your emergency fund. Set aside the first at least 10%, minimum 10%. We love to see 15, maybe even 20, but at least minimum. Even young people, I tell them, just start saving. First job you get, at least 10% into a savings account. That's what pay yourself first means. Live within your means. Obviously, it's an obvious thing, but a lot of people don't do that. With credit cards, it's easy. You stick the card in, you pay for it later. Uh-oh, I lost my job. Now I have a credit card bill and consumer debt racks up, and it's a very high interest rate. So you want to have a credit card, but you don't want to keep a balance on there. You want to pay it off every month. We do have a spending plan, and so I do put on here, if you want it, we're happy to send that to you. And one thing about this know what you spend, just to kind of make a point, is how easy it is for these extra spending things to add up. So we say here, a latte spurned is a fortune earned. So how much could coffee cost you? Oh, I just go out and get a Starbucks and it's $3.75. I don't know. Sometimes it's more than that these days. It's amazing. But if you do that over the year, that's $1,300. If you eat out at $10 a meal, it's $3,650. And if you go buy bottled water, and these are all things you can do at home for way, way less. Well, there's over $5,000 for the year. So it really adds up. Eating out, entertainment, impulse buying, all of that stuff really adds up. And this is what our spending plan looks like. So if you want it, just let us know. And back to you, Mandie, for your tip number 2.
Thanks, Judy. Very informative. I love it. Okay. Okay. My number 2 is write a letter or record a CD. So yeah, this is regarding passing on what really matters to your family, your values, your insights, your stories and experiences in written or recorded form so they can return to you long after you're gone. So I'd like to ask people, if you had to choose between the people you love receiving your money or your values, insights, stories, and experiences, what would you choose? And most people say if they had to choose, it would be the non-monetary assets. But so yeah, most estate plans kind of leave this out, and I have built this into my process because, again, going back to my own story, when my mom died, so since she died, the most precious thing I have from her is a voicemail. And, it's, so I listen to it all the time whenever I miss her. And it's like a perfect voicemail. I think she left it on the day my first baby was born, after she had been there at the birth. She told me how proud she was of me, that she loves me, how perfect the new baby was. And it's full of emotion and just the perfect keepsake of her. But, how often do we get those like long, perfect voicemails? How often do we save them? So, and then what if she also had told me, what her hopes were for me, what life lessons were most important to her, what values she wanted most for me. So yeah, so that's why I make it part of my whole planning process, to help you capture and pass on more than just your money. So your intellectual, spiritual, human assets, who you are and what's important to you. All right, back to you, Judy.
Thank you, Mandie. You almost made me cry.
Aww.
That is really amazing. I love that. I'm going to do that.
Thank you.
All right. So folks, thanks for hanging in here. My tip number 2 is to boost your retirement contributions. If you're not already retired, and if you're still in your income, in your asset accumulation phase of your life, we kind of break people up. You're either accumulating assets or you're depleting assets. So if you're in your asset accumulation phase of your life, the best thing you can do is, contribute as much as you can to your retirement accounts, to your retirement savings. Nobody ever got to retirement and said, oh, darn, I saved too much money. Doesn't usually work that way. So we like to help you figure out, are you maximizing your pre or post-tax retirement plans? Should you be using a Roth IRA, a Roth 401k, a SEP, a simple? What are your available plans? If you're self-employed, which is the right plan for your business? So those are very, very important decisions because the plans have different rules. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out what you should be contributing to first. If you have a limited amount and you can't maximize all of them, which one goes first? So knowing the difference between a Roth and a regular, if you work for a company that has a 401k or a 403b, 401a, do they offer matching? You don't want to leave any money on the table. It's surprising how many people out there are afraid to contribute money into their deferred savings plan, and yet they might have a matching contribution available that they're just missing out on. So increase your contributions, make them automatic. What you see, what you don't see in your take-home pay, you can't spend it. And remembering that pre-tax, whatever you're contributing, you would have gotten less in your take-home pay. So this is just an example here at the bottom. If you do a $500 monthly contribution and you're in a 30% combined bracket, $350 a month is what you're going to feel in your net pay, in your net take-home pay. And so these are just a quick little overview of some of the limits for 2021 and how they've changed. So the 401k here and the 403b, profit sharing plans, etc. They're called different things, but this 401k, 403b, those are just sections of the IRS code. They all have the same tax effect and the same tax rules. But you're allowed to do $19,500 this year, same as last year. And you can do $6,500 as a catch-up. So if you're over 50, the IRAs are $6,000 this year, same as last year, and $1,000 for your over 50. So if you're over 50, see, there's really some good things about aging. Besides at 62, you can get a lifetime pass to the parks, the whole park system at age 62. That's a really good thing. And this section below is for self-employed people. If you're self-employed, you may want to do a SEP, you may want to do a simple. These are the limits this year. We're happy to talk to you and help you decide which is the best plan and why. You cannot use both plans in the same tax year. And the Roth IRA contribution limits, who can contribute to a Roth? That's what this table shows. So if you make too much money, you cannot contribute to a Roth. So some people can and some people can't. And every year that you can contribute to a Roth, it's a really good thing to do, because should the year go by and you didn't do it, you can't make it up later. So
Hey, Judy, I just wanted to interject very quickly. Your screen is not sharing. So if you just hit the share screen button, then people can see exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, I thought it was.
No worries.
Somehow it.
There it is.
Are we good now?
Looks good. Looks good. Looks great.
Did nobody see the last slide?
It just turned on now.
Oh my goodness. All right, so we're 2 slides behind. Here's what I described, the $500 a month minus 30%. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Great. I'm so sorry. I'm new at this Zoom webinar, everybody, so bear with me. Plus, I'm the oldest one in the crowd of panelists, so. And here's the limits I was talking about for 401k, 403b, IRAs, SEP Simple. Happy to get these slides to you afterwards. And these are the Roth IRA limits. So if you make too much money, again, you can't contribute to a Roth. If you're single, that's between 124 and 139,000 you phase out, and married you phase out between 196 and 206 to be able to contribute to a Roth. And the last thing about retirement contributions is Roth 401k versus Roth IRA. There are some differences. If you have a 401k that has a Roth provision, you might want to consider that. It may or may not be the best thing for you, but these are the pros and cons of each. And again, happy to talk to people individually about what's right for them. So Mandie, I'm going to turn it over to you for your tip number 3.
All right. Thank you, Judy. Okay, tip number 3, pay for and plan for your funeral. I know we don't like to think about these things, but if you do it now, then you don't have to think about it later. So yeah, let your loved ones know in writing what your wishes are so they don't have to wonder. So yeah, would you like to be cremated or buried? Where would you want your body, or where would you want your ashes to be scattered? Yes or no to a viewing. And then maybe consider prepaying for these funeral expenses so that your loved ones don't have to scramble in a time of grief. Okay, that was a short one. Back to you, Jude.
All right, here we go. My tip number 3 is to
share your screen. There you go.
Optimize your portfolio. So you can see on the screen here that we've got 6 different portfolios showing. These go from more conservative all the way up to more aggressive, as indicated by the mix of stock and bonds. Generally, we do use some alternative assets for our higher net worth clients, but this is kind of a simplified version for this presentation. So have you optimized your portfolio, and how would you know if you have or not? Well, the first thing really is to assess what you have in your portfolio and make sure that you have set aside short-term money for your short-term goals in your safer investments, and then invest your longer-term growth money for growth. Make sure your portfolio is diversified. And remember, some of the worst investments are those that you will hear about at the water cooler at work, because if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And believe me, we've seen people get caught up in some very bad Ponzi scheme type investments before they've come to us. And it's very frightening what's out there. So if you hear about an investment that sounds too good to be true, we are happy to look at it for you and give you our opinion on and weigh in on it. Stocks historically have averaged 9 to 10% over the last 100 years. And so optimizing your portfolio and looking at, what is a good balance for you depends on not only what your goals are and what your time horizon is, but what kind of risk are you willing to tolerate? Will you be able to sleep at night when your portfolio fluctuates? Because there's one thing we know is that stock market goes up and down. It's not a straight line up. But over time, if you have a a long enough time horizon for growth, you're always going to benefit by having stocks in your portfolio. Another way to kind of help you know what your risk tolerance is. What did you do the last time the market dropped? Were you there in 2000? Were you there in 2008? How did you handle that? Were you able to tolerate that? That could happen again. So we know that. Mandie, your turn.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Okay, number 4, plan to pay no taxes. So yeah, think about, would there be taxes on your estate and how would your heirs pay them? So even smaller estates can be at risk for estate taxes, especially if there's life insurance involved. So yeah, you don't have to be rich to think about this. So what you don't know could cost your family big. So this doesn't apply to most of you now. The current estate tax exemption is 11.45 million, but this changes frequently. So back in 2007, the exemption amount was only 1 million. So anything over that was taxed at 40%. And it's predicted that the estate tax exemption will come down to 5 million soon. So anything over that 5 million would be taxed at a super high rate. But a trust protects your assets from estate taxes. And also, like I mentioned, life insurance would be a part of that estate that is subject to estate taxes. Okay, that's it. Back to you, Judy.
All right. All right. I have tip number 4 for New Year's financial goals is to identify your financial and life goals. This is the really fun part of the financial planning, that if we're lucky enough to get to help people with their financial lives, we actually start with this. And we take our clients through a really fun, really sat down and gotten a chance to really think this through. What is important to you in your financial life, your lifestyle, your children's college goals, your work, your career goals, your retirement timeline. Not everybody has not everybody aspires to just completely stop working. Some people plan to work their whole entire lifetimes if they have a good work-life balance. What are your goals for charity and gifting? Is it important for you to leave a legacy somehow, either to your family or to the world? Those are all the kinds of things that we discuss with our clients. This next slide actually shows.
Hey, Judy, sorry, just to interject, your screen is not sharing, it's just black. So maybe there's something to click there. Just want to make sure that everybody can see what you're so wonderfully illustrating verbally.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, if
I think maybe I'm having trouble with my
okay, if for some reason it's not working, then I would say just continue, but just in case there's a button that needs to be clicked, I just want to let you know.
No, I think I'm having some trouble. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. We just can't see your screen.
Okay. All right. Is there any chance you have a copy of my slides and you want to bring it up? But I think I'm having some kind of connection problem.
Yeah, I don't quite have the don't have that up, and it would take a little too much time. So I would just say continue verbally.
Okay.
And do your best job illustrating it.
Yes.
With your words.
And so I actually, what I have up on the screen is an actual map that we did for clients, and we changed the names that they identify their goals. And I'll just read off a few of the things that they stated just to give people an idea of, how this tends to go. They had some financial set-asides that they wanted. One was for house repairs, one was for bathroom remodel, one was for, they wanted to help their son with a down payment on a house, and one was an annual $15,000 for vacations. Then they told us that the husband wanted to take off 3 months for travel and just take a 3-month leave. That they wanted to spend more time with their family, mainly their grandkid. He wanted to cut back work overtime. This happened to be a self-employed individual. The wife wanted to worry less about money. That was a big actual goal of hers. She worried a lot about money and she wanted to worry less. So she felt like doing the financial plan, she would be able to have a better handle on how things were looking long term, and a few other goals. But those are the kinds of things that we can do. Obviously, if you're working on your financial life goals, it's just sitting down and listing what's important to you. So that is my tip number 4. Back to you, Mandie.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, my last one. Thank you everyone for being here this whole time. Hopefully you're learning some things. So yeah, my last tip is get organized. So yeah, let your loved ones know where they can find all these documents, your legal documents and other important paperwork. So, and also let them know where the key to your safe deposit box is and the key to your safe if you have one. Also include all of the password information and ways and how to access your online accounts. Okay. All right, that was my last one. So back to you, Judy.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. It looks like your video is frozen.
Yes, that's what's going on here. So somehow my video is frozen and I can't share my screen either. So I'm thinking, I don't know if I can log out and log back in and let you finish your presentation, and then I can try to come back. Why don't we do that?
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know kind of about my process. So I begin all of this estate planning with you with it's called a family wealth planning session. And this is a, oh, hi, Judy.
I'm back.
So this process my clients all love, and I'm sure you would too, because it supports you to get more financially organized than you've ever been before, obviously, unless you've already been working with Judy. And it ensures that you make informed, empowered decisions for the people you love, so that you know what you actually need to have in place and what you don't. And during the process, you're going to get, so you're going to know with certainty that you're making the best decisions throughout your life. And your family will know how much you cared about them and love them in the event of your incapacity or death, because everything would be so well handled. And yeah, this is ultimately something you do for the people you love. So I wanted to thank you for being here today on the webinar, and I have a special offer for those of you who were here. So you'll get $250 off your estate planning if you book your family wealth planning session today or tomorrow. And here are some dates that I have available. And so you can just go to my website if you want and let me know your preferred date and time, and I will follow up with you to finalize. So again, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you learned something. Okay,
Thank you,
Judith.
Mandie. All right. I hope you can see and hear me now.
Yes, we can.
Okay, terrific. So let's see here, because things got a little, trying to get my screen share back up. Okay, here we go. All right. Can everybody see that?
Nope, can't see the screen share, but we can see your video and we can hear you.
Here we go. How's that?
There
Here
it
we
is.
go.
There we go.
Yes.
Yay!
Yay.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Okay. This was the goals map that I was describing. So if anybody heard me talk about it, there it is. And that is just kind of an example of the fun goals exercise we get to do with our clients. And so my fifth and final, before the bonus tips, tip is assemble your financial team. Now, I cannot tell you how important this is. Investment advisor, that's us, that's what we do. We help with many, many different things. I talked about this: goals discovery, financial planning. We help with tax efficiency, portfolio management, cash flow strategy, estate strategy and coordination. So with your estate planning attorney, we help interface with that if needed. We can help assess risk management. Do you need insurance, like life insurance, long-term care insurance, annual comprehensive reviews? So keeping in touch with our clients is what an investment advisor needs to do to make sure that everything is staying on track. An insurance professional, you need an insurance person to do your property casualty, your home, your personal, your umbrella. We're not talking that much about insurance today, but umbrella is huge. It's something that a lot of people don't have who should have it. Health insurance, life insurance, long-term care. We're also experts at long-term care insurance. We can help do quotes and help you decide if that's something that you should have. Estate planning, that's Mandie's quadrant here. Trust, wills, advanced healthcare directives, powers of attorney. There's some other things she didn't talk about today. A tax person, tax prep, tax planning, business owner advice. Very, very important. So these four all together is your financial team. And we think everybody should have a professional team that all can work together, that can talk to each other, because that way you're going to really catch anything that needs to happen in your financial life. And that having been said, these are for those of you who stuck around, my bonus other financial fitness tips to close this out. Number one, evaluate past financial mistakes. What have you done before? If it was a mistake, let's try not to do that again. Maybe collecting too much debt, maybe a bad business partner, many different things that can happen. Review your outstanding debt if you do have debt, and prioritize. A lot of times people are sitting there with credit card debt. They could use credit card offers like 0 interest for a year, 0 interest balance transfers. There's lots of those available. Do maintenance. By doing preventative home maintenance, you usually will save in the long term, because if you have a leaky roof, well, it's going to cause more damage later. Same thing going to the doctor and dentist, preventative health. Check your credit report. I suggest people do this every couple of years. Get a copy. You can go to freecreditreport.com. You can get your credit report printed out. You can get a copy of it and go through it. If you have any open lines of credit that you're not using, close them out. Those are all just targets for identity theft. You really want to avoid identity theft. Use credit monitoring services. These are really good. Change your passwords. Use a password manager. Mandie talked about having your passwords as part of your estate plan. That's really, really important, because a lot of our files are in our computers, our pictures, our stuff. And if you go and nobody can get into your computer, well, that's a real problem. So your passwords are a really important part of your life. And business owners, evaluate your business value on an ongoing basis and make sure you have a continuity plan. So those are just some extra things. They may or may not relate to, every one of those may or may not relate to each person. And to keep us on time and have enough time for question and answer, this is just an overview of Blue Summit and how we help people. We're a registered investment advisory firm. We are fee-based. We operate in 22 states. We've been in business for 28 years. We specialize in sustainable and responsible investment portfolios. We manage over 130 million in assets. And this is our How We Help handout. If you'd like this, I'm happy to email it to you directly. We help in 4 main areas: tax efficiency, investments, cash flow, broader strategy, financial planning, estate planning, risk management. And this is our team. You know me now, if you didn't before. I see a number of clients on this webinar. Thank you. It's so great to have you here. And some of which I've known for a very, very long time. Robert, my son, who is our moderator today. Alan's our portfolio manager. Veronica has been with us for 25 years now. And Sylvia are our private client services professionals. And so we're offering a $350 off the cost of a full financial plan. We're happy to talk to you for free about whether or not we'd be a good fit. So the first appointment is absolutely no cost, but if you book an appointment in January, which is super easy to do, you just go to our website, bluesummitwealth.com, and then on the top right here, you can schedule a meeting. We'd just be delighted to talk to you and see if we're a good fit. And thank you so much. And
Wonderful.
well, I think we're ready for questions and answers.
Thank you guys so much. We have 2 questions from the audience, and the first one is directed toward Mandie. So one of the questions is, at what age do you think is good for people to start talking about estate planning and setting up a trust?
Oh, really any adult can benefit from an estate plan, at least, because at least you might not have enough assets at a younger age to maybe need a trust, but definitely a will, power of attorney, healthcare directive, all adults should have. When you start getting into a little more assets, basically the cutoff for probate is 166,000. So if you're anywhere over that, really you probably want to think about a trust to avoid probate. And if you have kids, for sure, you need to think about an estate plan, not necessarily with a trust, but definitely for the kids' protection part.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And last question before we wrap up for Judy, what is important to know about living in retirement on your investment accounts?
Oh my goodness, that's not a loaded question, is it? Well, obviously it depends. It depends on what your assets are and what you spend, what your lifestyle is. However, I would say that if, that question, it's not going to be, the answer's not going to be the same for everybody. For a lot of our clients in retirement, we tell them to spend more money. Believe it or not, it's crazy. You know, wouldn't think of a financial advisor as having that role to tell people to spend more money. But if we can see clearly that they have enough to last their lifetime and they have ample resources, a lot of people are too worried about spending money and being able to do and doing the things they want to do because they've had to tighten their belts for so much of their lives. So oftentimes in retirement, we're actually telling people to spend more money. You can afford it. If we're in that objective position to be able to look at everything and say, hey, you can spend more money. But if somebody is on the other end of the spectrum and it's really tight and they're in retirement and they may, they have a chance of running out of money if something catastrophic were to happen. Then I would say know what your needs versus your wants are. Make sure that you have insurance for the large catastrophic expenses, like a long-term care insurance, for example. That's a really important thing and an often overlooked thing when people retire, is they don't insure for that. It's a health insurance, basically a part of your health insurance that isn't covered by any of the health insurance plans. And it's not covered by Medicare either. So I would say that that's a pitfall that sometimes people don't pay attention to in retirement. And then being very strategic, working with your tax person, your investment advisor, on what is the best way to withdraw funds. For example, if you give money to charity and you're in your phase where you have to do required minimum withdrawals, well, there's a really great tax reduction technique where you can take the money straight from your IRA accounts and give it directly to the charity. It doesn't go to you. You don't write the check. It has to come straight from the account. And it's called a qualified charitable distribution, or a QCD. And the tax disappears on that money. So there's a lot of things in retirement. It really depends on what the situation is. I hope that helped.
Wonderful, wonderful. Not an easy question to answer succinctly. So thank you. At this time, we're going to wrap up. So if anybody still has questions or would like to get a hold of Judy or Mandie, their emails are, you can go to their websites. We will be sending out a recap email that will show and we'll post a recording on YouTube. So if there's some things that you want to go back to, you'll have the opportunity to do so. So thank you to all of our attendees for showing up. And there's still a few questions that we are going to address offline, so don't worry, we'll get to you. And for now,
and we have another webinar.
Yes, and we have more webinars every month for the next 3 months. So we'll be sending out more reminders for those. So feel free to join us in the future. So thank you guys for joining, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.